calling this meeting to order, so it can be in disorder very soon while they get this performance going. Okay. So I call this meeting to order. Will you join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Flag's back here. You can see it. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I believe, Lindsay, you're going to read that.
Sure. Our mission is to foster academic and social growth for each student in a safe, supportive school environment. Our vision is to be a learning community that inspires our students and staff to think critically, grow intellectually, and live with integrity.
We are ready. Are you ready?
Guys ready?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice model.
Awesome.
Here?
Yeah, that works.
I told you, if you need to go understand. Are you ready? Should I give a speech or something first?
Absolutely.
So I started these guys on recorder last year, but then I switched from music to drama. But we'd already submitted to play at the School Board Association, and so we got approved, so I kind of got the band back together. And we only know 6 songs, so I'm probably gonna do them all for you. They're each like 3 seconds long. But Columbus was their first time playing for people, and it was just great to see how comfortable they got as the day progressed. And so now that crowd was kind of mobile. They would come by and stop for a second and then keep going, but this is their first, we're gonna call this a concert today, guys. All right, save your applause for the end, thanks. Go start with Hot Cross Buns.
No, you won't touch
Here we go. First song is Hot Cross Buns. Jackson, go ahead, play by yourself first. Get on 1, 2, Jackson, play.
No, I'm talking about the song.
Hot Cross Buns. 1, 2, ready, go.
No.
Solo. 1, 2, ready, go. You ready? Everybody in, 2, ready, play. Next song, Merrily We Roll Along. Let's do it together. 1, 2. 1, 2, ready, go. Next song, Go Tell Aunt Rhoda. Reagan, play by yourself. Jackson play bottom. 1.
Left and bottom.
Top, bottom. 1, 2, ready, go. Good job. March steps. Clayton, you want to play by yourself? Share. Clayton, 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, ready, go. Oh, start that again. 1, 2, ready, go. Good. Last song, lightly row. Reagan, go ahead and play the top line by yourself. 1, can you? Can you do it? Top line, go slower than you think. 1, 2, ready, go. Top line, 1, 2, ready, go. Go. Good job, guys.
We'd like to honor Mr. Richmond tonight. He put his blood, sweat, and tears into these 5 students. He's worked with them for many weeks after school. He took 5 kids up to Columbus by himself, which was really brave.
Lesson learned.
Brave, all of that. So thank you, Mr. Richmond, for investing in our children and being such a great example for our children.
Thanks for giving us the idea
Yes.
and the opportunity.
And we have a little something
So
for
nice.
you guys. We're gonna honor Jackson McMullen for the Brink Quintet, Reagan King. Woo! We have Clayton. I don't wanna butcher. Utrecht. Okay, very good. We have Zariah couldn't be here. And the best for last, Solomon Thornton. Good job, guys. We're so proud of you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, parents, for all the practices. Thank you, email. So thank you, guys. There's cupcakes if your child, or if you guys would like a cupcake. So help yourself.
I'm gonna cupcake.
Thanks for representing the school district. And Coach Clayton in soccer.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. Item 4, are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to change executive session. Oh, no, that's still on. Yeah, we erased, okay, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect, okay.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as stands?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Can I have a motion for the approval of minutes of the regular meeting October 17th special meetings of October 22nd, November 7th, and November 10th, all this year.
I'll move. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes. Number 6, student report.
All right, so we have invited.
Are you- Yeah.
Bathroom.
Yep.
Okay, Malik will be joining us in a minute.
Yeah. I saw him here earlier.
But we also have Josh and Faith, and they have joined us to share a little bit about what's going on in their world over at secondary campus and in the district. They are also, if you watch FinCat News, you may see them from time to time and recognize them. So, welcome. So the floor is yours if you guys want to share a little bit about what's going on from your vantage point at secondary campus. Some highlights from first quarter.
First quarter, obviously we had Finnegate, and Finnegate's always like really fun. I think this year was probably one of my favorite Finnegates. I don't know, it's just like there was a lot more energy than past years. Like,
Remind me of the thing gate again.
so
Yeah,
I
tell us.
like fun.
It's like a pep rally.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
like a fun day.
Yeah, it's like a real fun day for Teen Time. We have pep rallies, there's games, there's food. It usually takes over most of the day, so
House competitions.
yeah, house competitions. Yeah. And then we had a powder puff game where like the girls were football players and the guys were the cheerleaders.
Those are always fun.
Yeah.
My first quarter this year is probably like the best first quarter I ever had, like in school. And it's mainly because I'm a senior and like I already got my classes done, so I have a lot of like fun stuff, like fun classes and stuff. But also because like the thing I like about Finneytown so much, like since we're a small school, we're like pretty like open to the students, like especially the art department. And like for example, in first quarter I got to DJ at homecoming just for asking. Like I didn't have any experience at all. I learned that day how to DJ. And then they let me DJ at the pep rally, and they let me record like in global media. They let me like direct a lot of stuff. And I just had like a lot of freedom to just do fun things and like learn a lot when it comes to art and music. Things just by asking, which is pretty cool.
Anything else you guys want to share or talk about? What's going on? Or things you're looking forward to for second quarter?
Are we gonna have like a second quarter pep rally?
Basketball. I think it's up to leadership. Marching band was pretty fun. I'm glad we got to go to like Bands of America in my senior year. And I don't know, it's been calm. It's been pretty peaceful.
Yeah.
Did any of you guys attend the restorative practice weekend getaway, or?
I was in
No.
Bands of America.
But I think, have you attended before?
Yeah, I went on one of the
Okay,
retreats.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, I know they took a few senior representatives and then the rest were a new group to, train, so.
You guys mentioned with the house system, could you guys tell us a little more from a student's perspective, what you guys think of the house system, how you're connecting with the underclassmen? Are you guys all seniors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very well.
You're a junior, okay. I figured you guys were the juniors, just seemed like I wasn't sure. So you feel like you're connecting well with underclassmen with the house system?
Yeah.
I would say that the middle school and high school are pretty split up, and they could be together more.
I know in the leadership class in the second quarter they're gonna have like some of the upperclassmen go to like middle school minute groups, and like we're gonna like facilitate them and stuff.
That's awesome.
It's gonna be pretty fun.
I was pretty surprised at how many people participated in we had like a competition, it was like a Halloween decoration competition. Like there's a lot of people, like students participating in it that I thought like wouldn't really participate in like house activities.
Yeah, those competitions like really get the school engaged. I think we're about to start like a dodgeball tournament
Oh, yeah.
at school, so
make it so cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
But it's pretty good. That like hallway competition, I see a lot of like the house captains walk around and talk to different mentor groups, and a lot of people make friends too, working together and stuff. It's pretty good.
Sir, I'll go ahead.
Do you have any questions for us? You might not know what we do, or you probably don't know who any of us are, but do you have it as the board? Do you have any questions for us?
What were you guys like just talking about, like the full, like forward move?
So as a public governmental board, we follow parliamentary procedures. So there's a certain way of holding meetings in an ordered fashion. You have to call a meeting to order and take a vote, and if enough people don't want to meet for some reason, they can vote no. You have to approve like the notes from the last meeting, that's what minutes are, and the agenda, which is like our to-do list, before you even do anything. And then you have to, when you want to end, the majority of people have to want to end. So it's just like a very ordered way of holding a meeting. Very common all across all different governmental boards. But it comes across as stale, which is why we enjoy having you guys here, because you guys bring some life to this. Because if you go through this and you just kind of look at this, it looks really boring. But we're doing it for you guys because we care about you guys, and we're glad that you guys are here because we can actually ask you questions and hear from you ourselves. So
It's approximately Robert's Rules of Order is what it's called. If I go to the township, they actually do it a little different. Part of it's because they have fewer people. They just you still say, how do you know what you do next, and how do you know if a motion passes, and for recording and things like that. I actually was on a team for that in high school, and we took fourth because there was 4 teams. But I took fourth in the state of Ohio at a competition.
I will say also, so there's a book about 400 pages deep of Robert's Rules for how to conduct a meeting. And your parliamentarians are the ones who enforce the rules, and they will tell you their goal is to keep it fair and consistent so that everyone has their voice heard.
And for school boards, the parliamentarian is the treasurer. It's also that takes the minutes. So at times we'll say, how do we do this, right? Because we want to do it right, want to do it legal. And Mr. Oliverio, he has answers. It seems like, he actually knows what he's doing. I don't know.
So each of us either had a child that went through Finneytown or were themselves a child that went through Finneytown. So we're all here because we have a personal stake in what's going on, and we care about you guys because you're our current students. So.
And so, having met with Josh, Faith, and Malik, we have decided that this group will come together monthly, and then they will continue to meet with us and show up. If 1 or 2 of them can't make it, that's why we did kind of a collective. And so they will be joining us each month at the beginning of the meetings.
Well, we appreciate it. It gives us a different perspective on what's happening in our buildings. So we appreciate you, and thank you for agreeing to do this.
And at this point, I will point out, because I know some people may be leaving, there's also an event going on at secondary campus tonight. We kind of have a conflict, but Hope Rising is a project that Ms. Souders has done with her middle schoolers, publishing a book. And so tonight at 7 at the PAC, they are sharing their work. Their book is available for purchase, first come, first served basis. I believe the link's on the secondary campus website. Is that right? Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if you guys have anyone you're going to watch, but I know Miss Miller was going to go over, and Mr. Anderson we're going to go watch, so for a little bit.
Watch my own 7th grader.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. And help yourselves also to cupcakes.
Yep.
That's a one more thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Last thing, I just during the since we're seniors in our English class, we have our teachers sometimes mention about the applications and the FAFSA and scholarships. But I feel like it should be more pushed to try to get kids to apply to FAFSA, because I talked to a lot of people in my senior class, and most of them didn't apply to FAFSA or didn't even know how to, or didn't even know when the deadline was. And I was kind of serious because I was rushing through it too, and I was just imagining the people who didn't have friends or parents to help them get through it. And I know it's announced like every now and again talk to like your counselors, and I see it in the emails, but a lot of kids still don't like see that or hear it. Like I feel like it should be like brought up on a daily basis almost, because how important it is.
Yeah, and so to kind of share, for those who may or may not know, the FAFSA form is a form that is filled out to see if students qualify for loans, for grants, for different things to help them in their post-secondary studies. As a mom of a senior, I have still not filled mine out. It's on my to-do list. It does continue. The sooner you fill it out, the more opportunities. That's why they always say to fill it out early. So I think that's a great point and something that we can absolutely try to support our students in. And it's a horrible form.
It is.
It's kind of like a
Daunting.
free and reduced lunch. It's like some of our other forms that are incredibly complicated. So I appreciate you sharing that, John.
Thank you.
So,
So- I remember I was the first kid in my family to go to college, so I was the first one to fill it out, and I didn't have any help either. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention and saying, hey, maybe we should pay attention to this more and help focus. But do we offer like a workshop of something for parents to come and get help with it at all, or?
There was something sent out through our guidance or school counselors regarding support in order to fill that out. And actually, I think, was it College Hill? Or,
Yeah, but there's also FAFSA night.
There is a FAFSA night.
So, and if that doesn't work, families can contact our school counselors, and our school counselors will help in any way they can navigate that process, because it is cumbersome.
Yeah.
So, but the support is there. But I think advertising it more and making it more well-known is a great point, so I appreciate that.
Where would it help to advertise it, do you think, Josh?
In the classrooms, or maybe I don't think my mom was kind of like shocked, like surprised when I talked to her about FAFSA, because like she knew what it was, but she never got any like emails or like deadline notifications or anything like that. So she was like pretty mad when I brought it up last minute, and I don't know, I feel like it should be maybe in classrooms, maybe on the announcements, on
Yeah, we probably
can
not
do
a lot of
it,
other
yeah.
Big Cat News.
On
Yeah.
Big Cat News, we
Oh, that'd be a good idea.
posters, I don't know, anything to like get it like to show how important it is, because a lot of people in our grade don't think it's really important. Even the ones trying to go to college don't really know much about it.
Not the announcements, I know it was on the announcements,
Oh,
those
well.
aren't necessarily the best avenue. But high school English class might be a better, it's smaller.
Does the high school have like open house or parent-teacher conferences as well, that it could be discussed there?
Yeah.
That was part of what the counselors also sent out, because in my weekly newsletter, there was a counseling section.
Yeah.
And it was on there, but once again,
Depending on the avenue. Well, we will take that and look at different avenues. I appreciate it.
This is what I'm excited about, the partnerships and things that we may not know or may be missing. And just having you guys, because you're in the schools and you know what's going on, getting to that nitty gritty. And we just appreciate you guys being here and leading your classmates. It means a lot. I'm just excited about this partnership and how we're gonna grow as a district.
Yeah, any questions or things that you want to bring to our attention, talk to Ms. Miller, and bring this, and we'd love to hear anything that you want to share with us, if you're talking to your friends and they have things, and, anything that would be applicable to us to support, so.
it seems like there might be, I'm not sure what opportunities we have to remind the parents too, because the students knowing doesn't help the parents know. It's kind of a circular thing in
Right.
a lot of households, like somebody knows or whatever. I'm not sure we have solved that yet. For the parents to maybe get a notification just for that by itself.
Right. Something to think about for sure.
So even if you see it before it's applicable for your student, it starts being a rhythm of something you see when it is time, then you at least, your student wouldn't be surprising you at least, right? Because they're a lot better than they were. We had 7 kids we went through it with. So it has gotten improved a lot, but there is a fully standalone part the parents have to do. And the students are having to work
Relying
for
on
that
that.
too, yeah.
Yeah,
So get it done, Lori.
I will. All right, well, thank you guys.
Yes, thank you much.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to seeing you in December.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Feel free to stay. Yeah.
Josh is going right for the
not getting
cupcakes.
it.
Get it.
It gets boring.
Get it.
What's that? FAFSA.
FAFSA, the form for financial aid.
Financial aid funds.
Yeah.
FAFSA.
Yeah. FAFSA.
Filling in for me right now.
They are a nightmare.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
You guys.
As a high school student, I have board meetings with the school.
Yeah.
I was in the student council. We
I am
followed the
really
same
excited
kind
to have
of-
them.
The same kind of procedure, but not as
Every-
strict. And
Yeah,
Hey,
really excited.
Alicia, thank you for pushing for that to happen.
Thank you, I'm excited. This is what
Thank
it's
you.
about for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Okay, number 7, administrative report. Dr. Banks.
So I'm going to start with the consolidated school report. That's something we do annually to report out on our federal programs and saying that we were compliant with all of the requirements. We make note of it to the board each year saying that that's been completed and that we're in compliance. Last year, there was one component that we hadn't been compliant on due to coming back from COVID, and that was our hearing and vision screenings. That's not the case this year. So that has been submitted and we checked all the boxes. So we're in a good space there. Other things in terms of district updates, I did want to just share the Penn Memorial is coming up on Saturday, December 3rd. It starts at 6 p.m. at the secondary campus at the PAC. So, and it will feature our alumni band, Safe Passage. So if anyone's interested or willing, please join us. The SOAR survey, I wanted some feedback there. We did extend it. We were planning on extending it through tomorrow with the holiday. We are right now, just I think this afternoon when I checked, we were at 111 responses. It had increased from the last time we pushed it out in all of our newsletters. I know Meredith, Carol, and myself all put it in our last community update. We did get some additional ones from that, not many. We do have a pretty proportionate spread of responses from family members, staff, and students. So we can leave it open for another week, 2 weeks, do a couple. I know, Lindsay, you had suggested, sending out a robocall, doing some different ways like that. We can absolutely do that. I do think our response rate, just because it's an open-ended survey, is probably, we might get more. I don't think we're gonna get a significant amount more. So I think one of the things that was also mentioned when we meet with our support groups is mentioning and asking those individuals to really ask the people in their groups to complete that. So just kind of feedback on what we see the length of time that being opened. We had internally developed a protocol, plan to start looking at the data on Wednesday, because we all had our core team who's going to start interpreting, looking at the themes and things like that, had planned on starting Wednesday, but we can push that back if we want to extend the deadline. I'm just curious what the...
I presented to the FMPA. I mean, I think it's difficult to get people to fill out an open-ended short answer survey. I think even if I was told in a large group meeting that I should fill it out, it might be 50-50 unless I was literally told to do it right then. And unless you're in the commanding authority in a meeting or leading the meeting and saying, oh, almost like a teacher, do this, it's for a grade, then people may not do it. So I think, it may not be the fault of, I think we can do what we can to get as many responses, but if people don't want to fill it out, then that's a bummer, because we'd like to hear what they have to say, but as long as those that would want to fill it out do, I guess that's good. And then convincing people to do it's all another thing. So.
What are we doing with the information? I talk with some parents about filling it out, and they're like, oh, what's the point of filling it out? What are we going to get out of this? Or what's, how is it measured? So what do we plan to do next with the information?
Our plan was we have an internal team, I think there's 6 of us on the team, that we're gonna look and kind of do old school research, look for themes, look for patterns in terms of, are there certain age levels, demographics, where they feel like, I don't know, like any information like that, correlations, things like that, and then try to understand better where the community wants us to go, because the way the SOAR survey is written, it is really to explore what possibilities there are for our district, and then what measures or results matter to people, and so maybe guide us and inform us in some of the conversations. We also ask people who are interested in smaller group conversations to follow up on some of those themes, to leave their information, so that we can then maybe do some small group focus around it based on the themes that we identify. The plan was initially to present whatever we were able to analyze at the December board meeting. So that's kind of where we were then. And then based on those, decide whether we were gonna do focus groups, whether we felt like we had a pretty clear path forward, share that with the board in terms of informing some things that might happen moving forward. So.
I think the biggest concern I have is I don't think the deadline is clear. I know the deadline very well because I've been here listening to it, but if I was in the community, I'm not sure that I would remember the deadline. And I'm gonna push it off, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, and then not realize I've missed the deadline. So maybe a last chance to do it, we're closing it on this day, and then, give 24 hours notice, that way they can say, oh, I need to actually do that, instead of pushing it off.
Yeah, maybe do that with the call.
Yeah. Yeah, make it a very specific, just about that issue. Hey, last chance, if you wanna do it, get it in.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
So if we did that, send something tomorrow saying Wednesday, by Wednesday, please submit. I think I can do the link now. I think I figured it out where you can just do it straight from your phone. Although I don't think you do the short answers from the phone, but I can send out a reminder like that in a robocall. Okay.
That'd be perfect.
Okay. So then our goal will be to have something for the December meeting to report out.
Thank you.
That's great.
Next thing on my list. So we had an email we received from someone at Children's Hospital regarding ACEs. And ACEs, I just wanted to share it with the board. They had wanted to come and talk with us or do a presentation with the board. It's on adverse childhood experiences. I talked with Ms. McNair and Ms. Utley, who have experience with ACEs. Our school counselors and some of our mental health professionals have had this information before. In fact, Ms. Utley shared a presentation she had done with our staff previously. So I feel like we are, the people who would lead this work in the district are pretty informed on that. So I was gonna leave it up to the board whether or not you wanted to hear more from it from either an outside person, or I can invite Ms. Utley to share, but right now it doesn't seem to be a current need or push for it. I think we have done some things around social emotional in our partnership, just not only in our school counselors and our school psychologists, but also with Catalyst. So I feel like we're in a pretty good place with our support, but I wanted to see what the board wanted to do. Because I believe he emailed all of you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring it to you guys to discuss, to see your thoughts.
So since we're not aware of it, I think having, if Brittany would mind doing that. I mean,
Okay.
I think coming from not just what the program is, but what she's taking away, what she's presented, I'd appreciate that.
You said Brittany?
Brittany.
Yeah.
So I'll ask her
Or-
and maybe some others
Yeah, whoever,
internally,
right,
if
yeah.
they'd be interested either January or December, or
Yeah.
December or January is what I meant. Okay.
Does that make sense?
I'd be happy to
I
hear
would-
from someone from the outside, but if we have someone internally who's familiar, then I think that's even better if they're presenting the information.
Okay. All right. Then I will respond and follow up with them. Today you saw our first Finneytown Quarterly. That is intended to be something that people can watch very quickly from their phone, gather what's gone on first quarter, what are some of the celebrations we've had, and we're hoping to continue that moving forward. So,
It's pretty cool.
Yes, I liked it a
yeah.
lot
Really
too.
cool.
I thought that the design layout for the PDF was really cool.
yeah.
Get a chance to look at it. I thought that was well
All the
designed.
pictures and
Yeah.
just all the memories from the quarter. It's awesome.
Yeah. So Eric put that together for us, and it turned out fantastic, and it's something we want to continue to do just kind of as a
Just a highlight.
highlight reel, for sure.
So thank Eric. Good job.
Good job,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah, I saw it, I'm like, wow, it turned out great. So,
Less pictures of me, please.
Yeah. I did want to highlight the Capitol Conference. It was brought up. We attended some really great sessions. We got to watch our Brett Quartet perform, which was awesome. They did a fantastic job. One session I want to point out, we went to one that was done by Northwest Local School District, and they talked about their distributive leadership and it being more of a kind of a circle framework, which I think in a lot of ways was affirming, because I think that's a lot of what we're trying to do is more teaming and distributive. One of the things that I really took away from it that we're kind of figuring out is what are some maybe coaching we can do administratively with one another, and then also forming teams and making sure that there's diverse groups and thoughts and experiences on our team. So thought I'd share that. It was a great time. RP retreat, we just had students go on, again led by Tammy Dietz, which was awesome. They went to Campbellgard, I believe I said that right. The pictures were awesome, and it sounds like they had a really great time. I did want to bring up, because somebody had mentioned some concerns around the bathrooms here at Finneytown Elementary. And so I wanted just to kind of share an update in case other people in the community had concerns about this. We have been trying to figure out, particularly with the different wings, how to maintain kind of the cleaning schedule. And so I know Meredith has worked with the custodial team here on addressing that. They've been trying a few different things. She's worked with the classroom teachers on creating some schedules. And so I think it's working better. And so we're gonna monitor and keep working through some of those things about living in our new building and figuring out what works best. But that is being monitored and addressed. We had our first Pro Action Cafe, and we had 46 people RSVP. I think we had somewhere between 35 and 40 people show up. It was a fantastic event. Our students were stellar. Some of the topics that were hosted were mental health, diversity, and how do we leverage that, how to encourage volunteerism, communication, and what was interesting about the communication that was brought by one of our students, it was more about the conflict resolution around communication, particularly from a student perspective, and how so much could be resolved if people had better conversational skills and things like that, and how so many things are misinterpreted. And so it was a very interesting conversation. I got to be a part of that. And then how can we make the Finneytown experience something that is lasting and rich was another one that was brought by one of our students. So it was a great event. Our next one is actually the Monday we come back from the break, so November 28th. And we invite everyone to come forward. We sent out a feedback form, and somebody had asked, like, which we're gonna try to work into the next one, like, how do we get updates on the action that comes out of that? And so I think some of that is dependent on the people in the conversation and what action they feel compelled to be a part of. But I will say from last year's May, we started a writing group because there was a student, a 7th grader last year, who brought that she wanted to write a book of short stories about Finneytown. And so now we are, me, 2 students, and we're all bringing someone, so hopefully our group will double, but are looking to write short stories to compile a book about Finneytown. And that came out of our Pro Action Cafe last spring. So please come and join. I see at least one familiar face. I believe you attended, did you not? Were you at the Pro Action Cafe? Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
I thought so. Okay. Not to call you, I just like familiar face. Yeah. So that's one thing I wanted to share, and then
Can I ask about the Pro Action Cafe?
Yes.
And I get this question, and I'm not really sure I'm doing it justice, so I need some help. I'm asked a lot, what is it about, and I hear these conversation topics, but how are you choosing the topics? Do you choose them there? Or
That's a great question.
what goes on? And I get this question a lot, like, do I need to go? What is it? And I don't really know how to answer.
So there's not a great answer. Here's what I would tell you. It's the questions or the themes that we talk about are brought by the people who are there. So if there is something that is on someone's mind, Dan Joyner usually facilitates a large part of it, and he will invite anyone in the circle to bring forth a topic that they want to talk about or host. And so then, such as the ones I named, those are different than the ones we had last year. So there are times they change each time. There are some that are reoccurring. Like last year, both times we had topics around alumni. So it kind of depends on the makeup of the group and what that group feels compelled to talk about. And then the point of it is to have conversation around action, but then the ownership of that action is really by the people in the conversation. And so it's how committed are you around it to make it, help it move forward. And so, and we have a design team with students on it that meet and coordinate it. We did start this year, we didn't do it last year, but we started doing feedback, so anyone who attends gets a quick survey to give us feedback, and then we can tweak the design from there, so.
And what age group for students are you looking for? Do you welcome elementary kids? Do you want only high schoolers? Is there an age?
So I sent an email and invited all of our students, 4th grade up, and we had some elementary kids there. And we even have one elementary student who hosted a conversation. So, and that's something else I've been doing differently this year. I email those opportunities directly to the students' emails. And so I think that's helped increase student participation, plus I think kind of conversations between the design team, the students on the design team with other students, so. But we do have, our next one is the 28th. We do take December off, and then we're back at it once a month, January through May, and I have those dates that I can share. And I think that is, I think the only other thing I wanted to bring to the board's attention, the other session I attended, which Jalecia was in with me, as well as Jen and Aaron, was around board and superintendent kind of teaming and conversations. One thing I'd like to suggest moving forward is at the end of the quarter, since a lot of the benchmarks I'm looking at in terms of data and updates is quarterly, is that an open invitation to meet one-on-one around that and what's on each board member's mind. And so I figure I just set the dates, send invites, and if you guys are interested and it's worthwhile, we'll sit down one-on-one. But obviously a choice based on schedule and things like that, so. But I'd like to start doing that.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. I think that's
I have one thing to remind you of,
Yeah.
the attendance,
Oh, yes.
the attendance data.
So, speaking of,
I specifically asked, so it was something that was on your agenda, it was something that I added, so.
I will,
apologies.
if you want to take it
Oh.
and point it.
Well,
So this is, and not that we need to go over all of it right now, but this is a collection of information from first quarter and previous years. Some of the questions that have been brought up to me recently are either around referrals, some concerns around behavior, and so it shows over the years some patterns. I think it was very telling. So the first page is just a list of referrals, specifically from August 1st to November 11th. And that's for each year during that same time frame on that front page. And then the average referrals per month. The second page shows the progression of the code of conduct violation, the pattern by demographic, and then the pattern by consequence.
well,
The third page is our enrollment monitoring. So that shows as of the 17th, where our enrollment is at versus what the enrollment study said we would be at. So 26 more than where they thought we'd be. And then the following page is our staff attendance. And that one is labeled. One of the things to note, there's a year missing because of COVID. That data was kind of skewed, so we did not include that on the attendance data for staff, but that shows kind of the trend by month and week. And then the following one is our student attendance daily rate for this school year. And then the last page is just our achievement data since spring of 2016, kind of showing the pattern by cohort. Sorry, those yellows look very the same, or very similar. But
Are the yellows are the colors coordinated with the proficiency levels?
no,
Or are they the cohort?
they're the cohort.
Okay.
They're supposed to show the cohort over time. I think one of the things to note is from the spring of 2019 to the spring of 2021, we did see a pretty significant drop in many of our students coming back from COVID, particularly around testing. And we have not quite recovered that. I think that was part of what we saw in the achievement data that you guys saw from last year. We haven't rebounded, particularly in the area of math. So that's something we're looking
I
at,
do see
having
it's
conversation
way
about, so.
Yeah, if you look at grade 5, it goes 52, 52, 50, and then it just drops, but
Yeah,
yeah, wow.
so,
And there was a curriculum change time with that. And I think you had mentioned you don't know how the training had played through, or the training happened just before they got to use it, we had COVID, or was it something like that?
no, so we had adopted Bridges in the spring, right when, like, really aligned, right when COVID impacted us. And then in the summer, it was a lot of online training versus in-person training. And so that's something we're talking about is how, and I know we just at the last professional development session, we had some teachers leading some training around Bridges and what that could be. But I think that's part of it, and we're looking at that, like how do we revisit that and do some professional learning in person. I think that's definitely impacted some of that, so.
I think it was one of the first questions Jamie had, was did we happen to change curriculum in alignment with this? Yeah.
So,
On the average daily attendance, okay, that was my question. What were the numbers? Are those percentages, are they
for students or staff?
students?
For students, that's the percentage of students who were
Percentage,
here,
okay.
yeah.
So regarding student and staff attendance, I'm trying to digest as much of the data as I can, so maybe you can interpret it or give me a feel verbally. Part of the reason why I asked about attendance is just that a lot of districts have seemed to be having increases in the number of staff and students that are out sick, so much so that Lachlan, they took a couple days off, it sounded like, and then Talawanda toward Oxford, they took today and tomorrow off, but I didn't know what our numbers were there, so I just wanted to know if we're seeing an increase in illness and how we're monitoring that.
Yeah, I think for us, we haven't reached a level where we're usually that 80% percent of attendance is a indication that something beyond just normal, illness or absences. We haven't come close to that. The closest we've gotten is 89%. Now that's a monthly, that's our average for the month. So we have had clusters, I know particularly at Finneytown Elementary, where we've had either a grade level stomach bug or things going through. So we have seen illness, our clinic has been busy, but we are monitoring that. We have not seen, and I asked our nursing staff, like in terms of COVID numbers, we've been in a really good place. So that has not been a concern. Staff attendance, our November is showing up like a traditional October in our school year. So like October traditionally is a month, especially like the last 2 or 3 weeks, where we see a spike in discipline, we see a spike in absences. It's kind of like that. I think our fall break helped a little bit with that based on our numbers do look better than they have in years past. But I think that's just something to note. The fall can be a little bit tricky at times, so we're challenging.
And are we still tracking COVID cases?
Yes.
Currently? Okay.
Yep.
And are those on the website?
They are. They keep the website updated, and then the reporting feature is either calling our hotline, which still exists, or submitting a Google form, and then Kate follows up, our district nurse.
I hadn't even looked, but.
Yeah.
The fill rate on the staff attendance, the percentage, is that percentage of days missed, percentage of staff in building, like,
That,
how do I concept?
yeah, the fill rate shows how many, the percentage of absences we were able to fill with sub coverage.
Okay.
So if the number is low, that means we had a lot of internal sub-coverage or moving of people. So, and that is something that we did recently just have a meeting, speaking of that, with our union last week. Was it last week? I'm losing track of time. Because the union had shared some concerns, and so we sat down and had a meeting with them. Sub-coverage did not come up, but there were some other things. It has come up since then. So we are working with the union through some of those pieces and what different things we can do to come up with to resolve. Like some of it is around learning the building and this, particularly here at Pennytown Elementary, the new routines and what works, what doesn't work. So, and we've asked for a lot of grace as we work through that this first year because it's a challenge.
So do you have this like monthly, regularly scheduled meeting with the union representation, or how does that work?
No, we have a pretty good working relationship. We did meet with them in October around the calendar, which is on the agenda for tonight, to review the calendar options. They look at them, they gave us feedback, we met again and kind of tweaked some things. And then the union votes on the one we're presenting to you was the one that the union picked with the majority, because there were 3 calendars they had to choose from. But I think in terms of that relationship, they feel comfortable sharing the concerns. We usually follow it up with an in-person meeting and invite whoever they want to from their team, you know, from the staff, and sit down and have a conversation about it, so. And then any action that needs to come from that, we do.
Can I ask another question about substitutes? Do we have any full-time subs at either campus?
We do,
Okay.
yes.
And how many? I just don't know, so.
We have one, I think, on both campuses.
Okay.
I think secondary has
2, okay,
That's great.
yeah.
And did they get a slightly higher rate than the normal daily sub pay? Or?
Do you know the answer to that? I don't think so. I think only our long-term subs do.
Doesn't really matter. I was just curious.
Those rate for our,
building stuff?
yeah,
I believe it is the same as the long term.
is it? Okay, so then it would be slightly higher.
I think so.
Okay, I can find out, let you know.
Yeah, I was just
I'll
curious.
confirm it.
A lot of districts, they pay more for building subs per day, so I thought that we probably did, but I wasn't sure if we even had them. So
Yeah, we do.
that's great. So the fill rate, is that including the building sub?
It is.
Right.
Are you still looking for more building subs?
We're not looking for building subs. We are currently looking for educational assistants, both general and special ed. And so that is an area where it has been challenging in terms of hiring. We've had postings up for a while, haven't been able to fill those as of yet. So if you know anyone looking for a position, we have talked about looking for different places to recruit and try to get those filled. Because right now we tend to do the Hamilton County ESC consortium postings. So I think we're gonna have to get more creative, so.
How many are we short? By how many educational assistants are we understaffed? And are those certified positions? And do they, sorry, there's lots of questions.
Yeah.
Are they certified? How many are we understaffed? And do they get to choose a grade level, or are they sort of assigned to a swath of grades if they're hired for a position?
So I will say educational assistants are hired to meet a diverse need. And so it is based on student need that the assignment is made. We used to, which came up in the email I think I sent, we used to have specific kindergarten educational assistants when we switched to full day. That has transitioned over that time to become educational assistants that are used throughout the building based on whatever the need is at the discretion of the teams and the administration. In terms of special education, that is also based on student need, and so it can vary year to year, and a lot of our educational assistants are reassigned based on the movement of students or students moving in, students moving out. They have a permit and a certificate through this ODE, but it's not a teacher license. High school diploma is required, and there's certain physical attributes, need to be able to lift, things like that. So But that can all be found on our website at our postings, so.
And we're how many short? That was my last one.
I think, is it 2
Two special ed.
and 1 general ed?
Okay.
Yeah.
And do we still have room for the kindergarten, as far as in our staffing numbers, to have more kindergarten educational assistants, or is this not necessary with the way that things are structured?
We moved away from our educational assistants being assigned only to kindergarten, yeah.
Do we know why we did that?
Because just to use them to meet the needs of more students, and so we spread them out.
But we're still too short, so if we had 2 more educational assistants, they might do more. They might be in the kindergarten classroom sometimes, and they might be in other classrooms other times, but it would depend.
And we do a lot of the main place that we're, well, I won't say the main place, one of the places we're hurting is we have skills groups. And so those extra hands particularly allow for smaller groups for the skills groups. And I think that's one area that's been a little bit more challenging for us without those supports, so.
And these are full-time or part-time? Sorry, I have lots of questions.
No, the general ed education assistants are part-time, and our special education assistants are typically full-time.
So how much part-time? Does it vary, like 30 hours, 24 hours?
I think they're all 25 hours. Is that right?
So, I'm thinking right now, of course.
Yeah.
I think it's 20.
Right.
I'm like
Yeah.
right now.
That's fine.
I'm just curious.
It would be on the posting, I can find out, and let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, so highlighting that need in newsletters might help.
Yeah.
Yeah, in addition to going formal channels, you might have, families, parents, grandparents who wouldn't even think of it unless it came in a newsletter.
Yeah. I will provide the board with some of those details, though. as well.
And we can mention it to those we know in the community who might have time.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Great. Anything else? Okay, now it's time for public address. Has anybody filled out, submitted a form to you, Mr. Librarian? Okay. Now to board coordination.
I'll be happy to go. I was able to attend the OSBA conference, and it was an amazing experience. Had some amazing speakers this time, I learned a lot. We had one in particular, I believe her name was Laurie Hobson, and she talked about absenteeism. That's something that is, definitely prevalent in schools today. I also attended a class about school finance and transforming schools for all students. Anybody want to take a guess at how many students, I guess, missed school, at least 18 days of school in 2021 or 2022? Anybody want to take a guess?
State average of,
As a percentage or an actual?
So basically, blank students missed at least 18 days of school last year, which was up 8 million, well, I just gave you the answer. So basically, 16 million students missed at least 18 school days last year, which is more than prior to the pandemic. So numbers are really up. Relationships, routines, rituals got interrupted due to COVID. It was a very moving class. It talked about, I don't think for me personally, I didn't ask my children if they were okay. I think we got in our routines and we just wanted to get through it. I didn't stop and look and think like how our students might be struggling. So I think they took it upon themselves. They did a survey and they asked students, how they were feeling. I do have the handout if you'd like to look at it, and you guys can pass this around, but it was very, very helpful. Lindsay was in that class as well. It was a beautiful presentation. I'm working on getting a video that she shared with us. It was very moving, it was. So I know that you're our media guy. I could see you doing something like that with our students, but yeah, it was good. We had some great speakers, so. I also met with the PTA. We formed a committee on community engagement. Khadijah also attended that. So we're working on ways that we can get the community more involved. Just if you have ideas or if you'd like to attend, it's kind of a pop-in thing. You can come and share ideas that you have for the district. It was really cool. So we have our first game night, and that's going to take place on January the 12th, I believe. We were gonna shoot for something before the holidays, but with everything going on, we decided to hold off, so.
Is that something you want me to put in the community update or anything?
Yeah.
Or advertise it, or?
We're gonna get some things together. We're still working
Okay.
on it. I know Meredith is a part of that committee as well, so once we get more details, we'll share them and
Okay.
you can pass them along. We have our book fair coming up. I am kind of helping Ms. Wyrick with that. We are in need of a lot of volunteers. She's been out ill, so if you can help out with the book fair, please do so. We still need a lot of help. So we're looking for at least 2 to 3 volunteers for each time slot. So if you have time, sign up.
So what days and hours?
It's gonna be November the 28th through, I believe, like December 2nd for K through 3. Don't quote me on that. It is on Facebook PTA site though, if you'd like to sign up. I just want to thank the students who came today as well. It's one of those things where this is why we're all here, is for the students. For me, student voice is very important. It's something that I'm hopeful about, and I just want to get to know our students better, and I want all students to feel like they belong and they feel safe in our schools, and that their voice matters. So that's what I have. I know it was kind of rambling and all over the place, but.
That's good.
All right, I'll go next. I have a long list. Primarily, just giving a shout out to our marching band for a very successful season. So I attended the FMPA meeting on October 14th, while the rest of that was this month, November 14th, which was while the rest of the board and everyone else was out up at the OSBA conference, the Capitol Conference. Brad Delaney and Sam Franck, our marching band directors, they shared all the accomplishments of the marching band. I have them all written down here to include in the minutes, but I just wanted to highlight a couple different things. At OMEA State Finals, the band got superior ratings in every category for the first time in recent school history. So I think it's probably been at least 4 years since they've had straight ones. They were one of only, our band was one of only 5 Class B bands in the entire state to receive straight superior ratings in every category at state. So that is huge. That is a big deal for our marching band program. And then the marching band went to the Bands of America Grand National Championships in Indianapolis, which we approved them going to. And they placed 5th out of 26th, and they only missed semifinals by 0.55 points. So I don't know what the scale was, but that's really close. If they had qualified, there was one hiccup that I heard about through the grapevines, that there could have maybe not been a bus to get them back. So that was a concern that I had, and I communicated with Dr. Banks about that, and it sounds like that's an unfortunate circumstance that we're working to mitigate and prevent in the future, but it's not necessarily something we have a whole lot of control over with having our transportation outsourced. Is that correct?
I would say not even necessarily outsourced, just based on the current dynamics in that field. Our challenges are experienced by other districts, but I will say they've worked to really mitigate them as much as possible. So, and show up, but.
So one of the things I did want to talk about related to that could be, if we had a circumstance occur where we had a group, it was a band or a sports team, and they were to get stranded, is there something we could do as a district to get them back instead of having them have to come back early and miss out on an opportunity? Anyway, that's just a question I wanted to raise to the board, perhaps for future discussion, if there's a one-time expenditure for the board to hire a third-party company to get them back. That might be a worthwhile expenditure so that they would have the opportunity to stay when they otherwise wouldn't. I don't know if that would be hiring a last-minute charter bus or whatnot, or one of us gets CDL certified.
Well, that would be actually my suggestion is, could we make like a list of substitute or plan B type
I don't
of
know how that
driver
works.
somehow, or
Yeah,
are
there-
certified and able to do the job? I'm sure there's plenty in the community.
Well, and we have encouraged and we've been trying to get some of staff band certified, not necessarily CDL, but if we get band certified, we have 3 vans that we could utilize for transportation, which would not be enough for the marching band.
Yeah.
But we've also talked about if anyone on staff was interested in getting CDL. That was something we were thinking about in the spring and having conversations about, so.
So we could pay for that certification maybe if somebody didn't want to do it otherwise? I don't even know how much it costs, but.
Are you saying for staff or just?
Potentially, or other people,
There's a
yeah.
process with
Or
that.
even,
Yeah,
you
the
know, our
process.
support organizations, some of
So
our
that
support
might be a good
organizations
solution.
have some money in their accounts that maybe they could.
And since we own our own buses, we could give permission to that CDL certified driver contracted with the district for a one-time
Yes.
trip as long as they
Yeah,
have
we-
necessary training and. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So that was just one thing that I did want to bring up is that I wouldn't want any of our groups to have to come home early from things due to a lack of drivers.
Especially in that circumstance where it would be such an honor to continue.
Yeah. The bands, as a former marching band student, I was very impressed. I got to see it before they went to Indianapolis, their very last performance, and their sound was fantastic. Their marching was clean. They had many visuals as I've ever seen in a Finneytown marching band production, and they had an extra 2 weeks to their season past when marching band usually ends. So kudos to Mr. Delaney and Mr. Funk for giving the extra time, and the band as well. Also really cool that they got to go out of town because there have not been very many out of town trips with the marching band in recent years. And my hope would be to see more of those coming to us for approval. So, there was one thing that did come out of that I'll come back to, but some upcoming events for from the FMPA. The PEM concert, as Dr. Banks mentioned, is on the 3rd from 5 to 9:30. The orchestra concert is on December 14th at 7 p.m. Light Up Finneytown is coming up. There'll be luminary kits that are available for purchase. They will be sold at the different concerts. And you can put them all up and down your driveway. You guys have seen these with the little candles, and those are a really big fundraiser for the FMPA. That is on December 18th, that those will actually be out in people's driveways. And the elementary holiday concert is at 7 p.m. I believe it is here at Finneytown Elementary.
What day?
On December 20th is what I have. So we could double check on that, but I think it's the 20th because I was checking the.
Is that for
calendar
the
on
elementary one?
Yeah.
21st,
Also, I wanted to share with the board, I was able to walk through with Dr. Banks. She gave me a tour of Finneytown Elementary and secondary campus on the 8th, which was on election day. I had the day off school. And it was really cool. I got to see a lot of my former teachers and staff members who I remember when I was here in the building. It's cool to see some things that have changed and some things that haven't. What has not changed is that we have staff that care deeply about our students. We have students that are learning and growing. We have, there's excitement here. It was touching to me as an alumni to walk through and see our staff leaning over, working with students, and especially in this building, being able to look through all the glass. That's one thing that's huge, is when you used to walk through Whitaker, or even when Brent was open, you didn't get to really see what was going on in the classrooms. And being able to just walk through the school day when students are learning in small groups at their pods, at these tables that are perfectly sized for them, it kind of made me tear up a little bit as I was walking through, because it was just, it was beautiful to me, because that's what education is about, is caring for each of these students individually. And I saw that even just walking through the school. So the takeaway that I had is the more people that can see that, the better. If there's something that we want to say that we are as a district, it's that. And the school does a good job of showcasing that. So I just thought the more people that can see what our teachers are doing with our students and what our students are doing on their own during the school day, the better. I don't know what that looks like. I mentioned that to Dr. Banks. I think it would definitely look like all of us coming into the building from time to time with Dr. Banks and having a tour and seeing things. So if you have not already, I would encourage you to do so. Everyone else is on the board. And then I also mentioned to Dr. Banks, if there's some way to get parents who are going to be sending their kids to kindergarten here at Finneytown to schedule tours and be able to see, and it'd be nice if they were individual, but maybe that's overkill, I don't know. Parents from the district whose kids are going to be, who are preschool age, going into kindergarten to actually come in and see during the school day. I don't think any of them could come and see what they walk through and not walk away with a more favorable impression of what we're doing here at Finneytown than just what you might see on a sign or on a paper. So seeing that, I think it would be incredibly encouraging to any parent of a preschool age child to send their kid here to Finneytown. So I don't know what that looks like as far as advertising or staffing, but that's just something I wanted to recommend. Secondary campus, the Mind Peace room was super cool. Also, the principals, Miss Miller and I forget who else you mentioned that has helped out with the repainting the different rooms.
Oh, the whole admin team.
Okay, so the whole admin team repainted some classrooms to repurpose them, and some walls came down, and it was cool to see what our staff is doing with our limited physical space in the years before we get our new building, which should hopefully be soon. Also, I do plan to schedule a tour of the rest of the district's facilities with Grant Anderson, our head of facilities. So I'll hopefully be getting a tour of Whitaker Brent and the Quonset hut before Christmas. So I'll give you guys an update on that. But I did want to thank Dr. Banks and the admin and all the teachers who were in the building while I was walking through, because it was a delightful experience, and I plan to do so at least once a semester. So, okay. The last thing I had, which I thought we had on the agenda, but I will include it in my board coordination, is regarding the choir director position.
That's a supplemental contract.
Okay, is it under supplementals? Do you want to wait and discuss that?
No,
then?
we can do it.
So there was some concerns that came up at the FMPA meeting about us currently having no choir. So the position, from my understanding, was posted, and then we've posted for a music staff member for the secondary campus, and then that staff member is doing orchestra. So the choir position is still not quite filled, so we're looking for somebody with those kind of talents. But I thought I might let you share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think in the past, that position has always been filled by a current teacher, and it's usually a co-curricular position, and so it's for somebody who is the director of choir, which then looks like having concerts. That's what the supplemental is for, above and beyond the school day. Last year, we had Miss Kennedy doing that for us. She was not teaching it during the school day because she was teaching orchestra, but we had an after-school program, and she received that supplemental. We have not filled that this year. We have not advertised outside of internal postings at this point. In terms of the payment for that supplemental, it's all negotiated through the contract and is outlined in that language in the contract. So it's a percentage of either the base pay of the staff member's base pay, or they're off of the base in the contract. And then that increases based on years of performing in that role. So right now, that's kind of where it stands. So
What would the time period be for, let's say, if, and I guess there's a couple of different questions with this, but as far as if this would be something that we would, I guess the first question would be, would this be something that you would want or advise that we post externally at this point?
I can tell you from my conversations with Ms. Miller, there's not been a significant drive from students for this in terms of moving forward. I do know it's something that people in our community are passionate about. I think depending on what it looks like moving forward, since it's not a co-curricular, it's not a staff member, we'd have to think about that and what that looks like. We like as much as possible for all of our supplementals to be filled by people working in our school district, just because of the connection and relationships that they can have ongoing with our students. So that's really where it stands right now. Since we don't currently have a choir program, there hasn't been a huge push to get that choir director position filled, since it's not co-curricular at this point.
Got it.
How are we asking the students if they're interested?
We've done it before in terms of course request. Now, I don't believe choir was on the last course request, but we have had students advocate for certain classes through their conversations with counselors or conversations with administrators. We have had people ask for choir. I think 2 or 3 years ago, we had a couple of students who we sat down with, but there hasn't been that push in terms of coming from the students, but there's not, I don't know if there's a survey or not that we do at this point, I'd have to ask Ms. Miller, but just from conversations with them right now.
One of the concerns that I have as a board member is that not having a choir, I don't think is the best look for the district. I think it's a negative when a parent has a high school student and maybe they love to sing, maybe even so much of a negative that they might not send them to the Finney Town. So even just thinking about students who are in our district that are currently not going to our district, I think that's the kind of program that if it existed even in a small way, be it an externally posted contract and having somebody fill whatever that position would eventually look like, I think that would be an appealing, I think it would be appealing and help with increasing our enrollment, which is something that we had talked about, and also just those students that may not be vocalizing, no pun intended, that they are interested in being in a choir. Also, I think with the right director, they might be able to stir up some interest that may not currently exist, or that we currently know of. So I didn't know what the decision-making process was on that, but I guess it would be, if it was to be posted externally, that would be going into next semester with a spring concert, assuming that there was the correct person found for that position.
Yeah, and I think it would shift a little bit of what that position looks like in terms of what it has in the past. So kind of reimagining what that, is it a choir club, is it a choir, what does that look like since it's not a course? So.
And how the rest of the board felt about that as
I
far as.
agree. I'd like to see a push on it. Music was a big part of my life. I think it's very important for our district, and I know that there has been some turnover just because we do not have a music program. So I'd like to see a push for it, even if we have to go out externally and look. But I think there will be a huge demand for it, more than what we are aware of.
I think we would be surprised. I think also we have some phenomenal music staff here at the elementary, and as these kids get older, they're going to be disappointed when they can't continue to sing. So I don't know necessarily about the high schoolers and where they're thinking, but I know some of the elementary kids. Mr. Richmond has really brought the passion, and you can't, I don't think there's a negative word you could say about Miss Fields.
Oh, yeah.
They really have instilled a love for music, and I think there's a lot of science actually out there and research that music helps with behavior and belonging and everything that we seem to value here. So.
By the way, my son is a professional opera singer who started singing at Finneytown Auditorium, and he's coming to teach at CCM for 6 weeks. So we hope to organize him giving a concert in the auditorium where he started singing.
That's good. Congratulations.
So in the past, there has been like jazz vocal ensembles as well as a cappella. And so I don't know as much as we need to say we need somebody to do this, as much as say the music community is not significant, but it's very well connected in the Cincinnati area. So if you just say it's an opportunity and you bring us the opportunity, like somebody would want to lead, whatever, currently is making high school students interested. I'm not the only person who knows that, right? But vocally, if we let the word out, I think we might have people propose to us, hey, this is something I can do, this is where it's successful, these kinds of schools it's successful in. And from that, you can start rebuilding. We also could contact the Cincinnati Youth Choir again. They did offer to do a program for us, which was not accepted. So there's things we could do. I can connect with Cincinnati Youth Choir again if you'd like.
Depends on finding the right choir director too.
Yeah.
Mr. Richmond, my son before wasn't interested in, Aerosmith or Mick Jagger, but if you spice it up and make it cool,
right.
I think students would really appreciate it.
There's always trends going on. So there's some musical singing thing going on through high schools in Hamilton County right now that we wouldn't know about. The students would. If somebody wants to bring that to Finneytown, it would draw people.
If we do post externally, do we have to fill the position if the right person doesn't interview?
No.
Just wanted to make sure. Okay.
No.
So if
We
someone
are
came with
okay
a
with
proposal
saying
and it
yes.
wasn't what we wanted.
And you can't have a position paid, Eddie, because you're on the board.
Well, I wouldn't want to direct a choir, so.
I would.
Well, I will work with our secondary campus team on exploring that and seeing what we can do and give you guys an update at the December meeting.
Great. That is all that I have.
Yeah, I'll go. Mine's pretty quick. So
I went to the township meetings, that's the meeting I go to, I watched it, Eddie went to the one the whole year where anything happened. Aside from people complaining about bars out of control. Actually, a pretty good presentation from, like, there's like a required 10-year plan for doing recycling in the state. And we have our own Hamilton County Waste Management, but they do theirs every 5 years. They came pretty good presentation on that. Aside from that, it's pretty standard. You know, what bar is behaving the worst this month. It's tough, it's really tough for the township to control that, because the biggest lever they have is the liquor license. And they've had actual deaths in bars and not had liquor license revoked, so it's not easy for the township to manage that. The foundation, Faintown Schools Education Foundation, yeah, the meeting was about the long-term plan for fundraising in conjunction with the secondary campus coming along. And that's all I have.
So as Eddie said, I did not attend the FMPA meeting this month. It was his turn, and I was in Columbus for the conference. Long-term facilities has not met, neither has personnel committee. Do we have plans for the personnel committee to meet soon, or?
Right now, there's some internal work going on around the supplementals, and then I think we will probably pick up January, February as we start planning for next school year.
Okay.
So.
I did have notes on OSBA, mainly on the Capitol Conference and my takeaways. I have several pages of notes from my sessions. They were pretty good. I plan on sending them out to the whole board as well as to those who went. I would love to request notes from everyone else who went, because I noticed just by sitting next to people, we take notes very differently. And I am very curious to see your notes. So no obligation, but I would love to see them as well, because I noticed you probably caught things that are different than me. The second graders and Mr. Richmond are phenomenal, and what they did made me so proud of our school and our kids. And coming from a band family, there are things that I noticed that other people maybe aren't aware of. That was not memorization that they played tonight. They were reading music. They played different parts. They could play every part of all 6 songs. He would call out, you play this part, you play this part. You take the solo this time. You take the solo this time. They had to know every single part and be able to actually read the music. And at a second grade level, that's really advanced. So I just want to call that out, because that was a really big accomplishment for these kids, and it took a lot of hard work to get to that level of, to be able to play at that level. Other noteworthy takeaways, I sat through a class or a session on designing for social and emotional development, and I was really pleased to see that just about everything mentioned is right here. It's in everything in this building. So I was very proud of our school, and I can't wait to see what we do with our secondary campus on those same lines. Restorative practices were mentioned a lot, which we talk about a lot here, and I'm proud of that as well. There were a few opportunities that I think we can take away from it. As Jalecia has already pointed out, the session on attendance was very, very good. It had some solid information and takeaways that it was aha moments, but it was also, here are some things that you can do to make a difference. So I want to look a little bit harder at the material and see if there's opportunities that we can incorporate in what we do here. And then I also noticed, and maybe it's personally my own thing that I need to work on, but a lot of the sessions mention your strategic plan. We don't talk about our strategic plan very often here. I would say that before going up to Columbus, I couldn't really remember everything that's in it. And it needs to be something that we live and breathe on a regular basis. So I was actually planning on copying it and printing it and giving it to all of you here just to kind of have a reminder, but I didn't get there. So just a thing to note that our strategic plan is something that I feel I need to know more about and make sure that I am living and owning, as well as, you know, when we have our discussions here. And then I noticed when I read the plan, we are up for needing a new one. So I'm sure that that's coming soon, but we'll have to just be ready for that, I guess. And I really enjoyed the time to get to know our team as well. There were a lot of good moments for me to learn. I'm not always the best at remembering characteristics of people and learning and remembering, you know, their history. So it's really great to have that reinforced a bit and get to know our team. And I think that's everything on my list.
Okay. I attended the FAA meeting, and we're transitioning from soccer, and we're going into basketball and all the different sports, and they're handling that very well. Same issue as always, looking for parents to volunteer to coach and get involved and help the kids out. Not just our students, so it's not specifically Finneytown local related, but it is a big part of our community. Attended the boosters meeting, and some of the discussion focused on the money that they have in accounts for all of our athletic teams. And not all of them are spending the money, so the boosters were reminded that money kind of needs to be spent, because if you're a nonprofit, you can't be carrying money over too many years. So Gerald will be working with the teams to make sure the next time they come and ask for $1,000 to buy this, he's gonna go to your booster money, right? Like go to that to encourage the spending of it as well, so that the organization doesn't get in trouble. I mentioned to both of those groups about the survey, encouraging people to go and try and take it, so hopefully that leads to some turnout on that. Something I've been going to my phone because I've been looking at an article here. So there was an election November 8th, and couple of minor changes in the state school board. There were three people that were elected in state school board races that are extremely pro-public education. And one of them happened to be representing Hamilton County and Warren County. Her name is Katie Hoffman, but
I actually know her personally.
so I was strategy and fundraiser on her campaign. So if we would like Katie to come and address the district and the board, she's more than willing to do that. Just tell her a time and she will be here. But since that election, basically the state school board operates, it's a 19-member panel. 11 of them are elected and 8 of them are appointed by the governor. The State House is now changing because of the recent pro-public education wins. They're trying to strip all the power away from the State Board of Education and basically make it a division under the governor's office. And they'll be allowed to pick a state superintendent, they'll be allowed to pick a director of curriculum and look at scores. That's really about all they will be allowed to do if they get that. Interestingly, the 19-member, you need a 2/3 vote to get anything passed. So with these pro-public education people getting elected, it's dropped below that 2/3 vote in terms of getting what the governor wants and that kind of thing, or what the state government would like. So they're looking to make some big changes. They think it's going to happen in the lame duck session. Hopefully it doesn't, because we've got some really great people. Katie, I know, was very strongly backed by teachers unions. They really, really like her. She was a public school teacher for 37 years at CPS. So again, if we want her to come and speak, just let me know, and I can get her to show up and let us know where she's going and take questions and ask us questions and that kind of thing. So, and that's me on my committee report.
Before we move on more, can I add a little bit more on my coordination? Is that okay? Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So one other thing, I did have a meeting with Mr. Oliverio and Mr. Warmack, our athletic director. We sort of just talked about basics of how supplementals work in the district, and I did want to share that with the board because I can't do that with you guys unless we're actually here at a meeting. So essentially, so we talked through exactly how they work specific to athletic contracts. So if a supplemental position is offered, it's not always brought to us as a board because Gerald doesn't always want to bring that contract to us until all the paperwork is all the way through, until they have passed their background check and the team's actually has materialized. Sometimes they'll hire for a position and the team doesn't actually come to fruition. And he doesn't want to send those things to us until they've actually been approved. So when it comes to athletic supplemental contracts, part of the reason why we get those, what may look to us like it's late or after the job has already been done, is because the paperwork just wasn't in. So we just had a conversations about the timeline of supplemental contracts. And one of the things that I had a thought, and this is the first time mentioning it to Dr. Banks, but would be if it would be possible to get a list of supplementals before a given semester begins. Hey, here's all the supplemental contracts that we expect from this semester. Not necessarily who's going to fulfill the contracts, because we can't really know. We don't necessarily know who is going to actually turn all the paperwork in or exactly what teams might materialize. But one of the things that I gleaned from our discussion is that I would personally benefit from having a list in July and December, but we're coming up pretty close on December, so maybe that's kind of too close. Just like, here's all the supplemental contracts we've had in the past. It doesn't necessarily have to be a cut and dry list, but then, and how much they pay. And then for me as a board member, I can look through those and get a little bit better sense of the vision for the district and how those supplementals fit into it. Because for me, when I look through and I'm approving them every month when we have a board meeting, it is helpful, but it feels like scattershot. And if I had at least an overview in July and December, I think it would help me to make sense of how the supplemental contracts play into our district's vision.
And that's part of the personnel committee, what we're working on internally right now to share with the board and to get feedback on is listing what are the supplementals. I mean, the salary is always going to be hard because it's a percentage and it's based on the FEA contract, which we can share for sure. But, and then looking at the ones that have been filled, and some have continued to be unfilled for a variety of reasons. But, so I think that's something we will be able to provide.
Okay. I didn't think that'd be too much extra work, because it would kind of just be pulling together what already is together just into a list. But I did want to ask if the rest of the board thought that would be helpful.
Yes.
Versus what we can't do, which would be approve everybody before they start, because it doesn't work that way. And that's what I gleaned from my conversation with Dave. So.
I also wanted to thank our administrators for coming to the OSBA conference. They had time away from their family and they wanted to learn and grow for our district. And I just appreciate all the time that you guys are putting in for our district. And I also want to shout out Lori. She has an opportunity coming in March. If you'd like to share, I don't know if it's too early, but if you'd like to share what you're going to be doing at the conference.
It's actually on the agenda for approval tonight because it's out of state, but Dr. Dinan and myself and Natambi, who is leading our book study, we put in to present at the first state boards, oh gosh, why am I blanking? Conference, inaugural conference. And so our topic is chapter 1, our equity story. And so we will be presenting that upon board approval in Tampa in March 30th through April 2nd. Yeah. So yeah, we're excited. And that came through Cheryl. She had sent that thing out, and so we put it in. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
So everybody done with the individual board part? Okay.
All right.
So now we have 3 discussion topics here. First one is maternity leave.
Okay. I asked to have this added to the agenda, maternity and paternity leave. I guess it came up a meeting or 2 ago and kind of caught me off guard that parents don't necessarily get paid time off other than their sick time. It's kind of something I think is very important that moms, 1, get time to recover after having a child, but 2, get time to bond with their kid, get time to see how their family is going to change and grow and adapt. And I just wanted to start a board discussion. I think we should offer some form of paid time off outside of their sick time for both moms and dads after childbirth. I think it's something that could be, it's a sign to our staff that we understand, but I think it could be a drawing point that could help us with recruiting and keeping staff here in the district. But again, showing that message that we care. I come from a country where maternity leave is 18 months and paternity leave is 6 months, then you can share it between the mom and dad. And it's to hear that and hear that teachers have to have sick time to use it, it is very hard for me to hear. And I wanted to, I know it's contractually negotiated. I would like to personally put out there that we should consider an MOU to change it. And I would just like to start a discussion amongst the board about that possibly happening.
Yeah, I wanted to weigh in on that. I think it would primarily, if someone's been teaching at our district or another district, then they usually would have a lot of sick time built up. So they could use their sick time. So if someone had been teaching and they didn't use 7 days of their sick time for 10 years, then they might have 70 sick days, and that might be more than enough to cover a maternity leave, right? But really for those teachers that are teaching in their first few years, a policy change or a memorandum of understanding to change this would really have more of an impact on those younger teachers, a first, second, third, all-year teacher who has a child. So for me, it would really impact those teachers, and I do think for that reason, it could help with attracting staff. I also think that it would take a little bit of the pressure off of younger teachers, because they might otherwise make a decision that's not best for their family because they need to put food on the table. And I know that there aren't necessarily other districts that we know of that are doing this currently in our area. But this is something that we could do that could make us unique. And whatever that time would be, we could discuss as a board.
So I would like to also point out that using your sick days for your time off after having a baby or growing your family may also have implications later on if you need the sick days because your baby is sick, because you have complications that aren't resolved. There's that, but then there's also several facts that support this. We've talked a lot about equity. Paid time off supports equitable living solutions. Paid leave improves maternal and infant health, lowers the chance of reporting intimate partner violence. That was a surprising one for me. Decreases infant mortality rates, reduces incidence of head trauma due to abuse, reduction of low birth weight and premature birth. Maternity or paid leave also shows a decrease in depression and poor mental well-being, and decrease in chance of rehospitalization to both the mother and the baby. So I also would support adding time in.
I did want to ask if having extra paid leave, I mean, essentially a staff member could just put their sick leave on top of that, and then they would get longer off that would be paid for leave. And maybe this wouldn't be a question that you can answer right now, maybe you need to talk to your building principals, but as far as whether that would put undue burden on our staff and cause an increased need for internal coverage, and especially with subs being short, what kind of a challenge that could present to our staff.
But the interesting thing there is you know a long time in advance when someone's going to have a baby, so you can
Unless
plan for
they
it.
do foster care.
Unless they
adoption, and
adopt,
then
but
they
usually the adoption path takes a long time, and
Yeah.
you don't know necessarily, you know when it's going to happen, right?
You probably have to offer it for foster care as well,
So-
in order to be equitable, since it's kind of, it's definitely in the same category federally. So that would be something we'd have to consider, and maybe even consult legal counsel for whether that would be, have to be included.
Yeah, I think foster care should also be considered in various ways. I know there's different forms of foster care and long-term versus shorter-term instances of it, so that would probably play in as well, but I agree.
I think in terms of impact, it sounds like it would just be supplementing what the board is considering, supplementing sick time for some sort of paid leave. That would be different from that. So most of our staff, particularly our females who are having children, will take whatever the leave is. That's a lot. So we're already getting that coverage. It would just be, from what I hear is supplementing
Oh, I see what you're
a
saying.
paid leave versus using their sick time.
Yeah.
So we're already
Right.
doing the coverage.
So there are staff members that might take the full 6 weeks.
Well,
That might
or-
take, that
So
might
you
take
can
the full
take
6
legally
weeks.
12 with the
Well, with FMLA,
FMLA
but
if you qualify for
our
FMLA.
policy is, I think, 30 sick days. they can use their sick days if it's banked. And then if there's medical necessity, you can take more sick days than that. Like I'm thinking, I would love to be able to give the teacher like a mom 6 weeks, right? And then let them use 6 weeks of sick time afterwards.
Yeah.
And then if there's medical necessity, move on from that. I don't know the ins and outs of FMLA, but you know, ideally, I still don't think it's enough, but I don't know how much more, how we can do it, you know, and I keep thinking, you know, and hearing on lots of things that that's not the way schools around here do it. We want to lead on lots of other stuff.
Yeah.
So why can't we lead on this? So.
I think I have to consider as far as the time. For me, I look at it and, well, even 2. So would make a difference as a parent. If that's 2 more weeks that you get to spend with your child that you might not otherwise if you only had a few weeks of, like if you had, you can take up to 6 weeks, 30 days under our negotiated contract of sick time paid, right? But what if you didn't have the 30 days? How many of our staff are, and this might be something that you know, might be something you might not know, Dr. Banks, but how many of our staff are taking unpaid time on top of their sick days, and how many of them are coming back right when their sick days end? And then that might be worth considering for us as far as how much time that paid time would
We're
be.
not that big of a school district either, so I don't think we've,
Yeah.
you know, got tons of teachers having children or adopting or, you know, but I think part of it as well is some time for dads. You know, the company I used to work with, it allowed me to work from home every other day for 3 months, but I had to use half a day's vacation for every day that I was home because my boss considered it babysitting, which was quite offensive. But, you know, it was a difficult thing. I used all of my vacation time to do it with both of my kids, but I know how valuable it was to Ginger and her recovery, but also how valuable it was to me in terms of the time I got to spend with my kids right off the bat.
I love the idea. Just being a mom, having 3 kids, I had 3 C-sections. My first one was a little bit more challenging, but the first 2 weeks was rough. Ryan had 3 days, and then I was forced to do it on my own. So I'm in full support of this. I'm not sure how much time we're thinking of offering for dads, or do you
I'd
guys
like
have
it
a
to be the
time
same
frame?
across the board personally, but I don't know what the time would be.
So I would just like to say that also the job of teaching requires standing, squatting, getting down the level of kids in some cases, bending over desks. There's a lot of physical movement in there, and childbirth is a major medical occasion. You're not even followed up with a doctor unless you have a reason until 6 weeks after. So giving teachers the opportunity to stay home and not worry about finances for those 6 weeks, I think is a huge, huge thing for them.
So as the next step, are there a couple of people that want to work on drafting something and working with legal in terms of what that could or should look like?
I would like to.
I'd be happy to work with you on that, unless you wanted to do it, Lindsay, but.
I don't care. You
So
want to do it?
I'd be happy to draft it with you, and unless the 2 of you want to draft something. I know that you and I had
How about
talked
you
about
two?
it, Jamie.
That's fine.
That will do.
I have other things on my plate for here, so.
And that list you read there, all those things make complete sense, make a difference.
Right.
It's not just not being there, but having the income, right?
Right.
Not being there is one thing, but not being there without the income is not a choice for everybody, so.
Right.
I'd like to see this.
Great list, thanks for bringing that.
You are welcome.
But
Okay, so we've done the supplemental contract discussion, I think.
Yep.
Sorry, thanks for the discussion.
I'm sorry, that actually wasn't.
That's fine. And then secondary campus bell schedule.
Yeah, so there were a couple questions sent ahead of time, so I guess we can start there and kind of go. So the switch from 6 to 7 bells happened the school year 2019 to 2020. So our notorious COVID year. So that was our first year. So we are in year 3 of the 6 bell schedule. Why did we switch originally? The conversation was, how do we increase the time in the learning environment deeper learning versus surface level, rote memory, build community. This was aligned with not only our RP conversation, but also project-based learning. And so that was kind of the decision that moved us. What would be the impact on staff, like if we considered switching back? I think right now, one thing, and I shared this in another conversation, but to switch back to 7 bell day, that's currently not something the administrative team is considering. We are in year 3. We feel 3 to 5 years is one of those pieces. Also, as we get ready to plan for secondary campus, we envision as part of the envisioning, as part of the planning and program design, the conversation about our schedule will probably arise and be a part of that. So it's a possibility that 7 bell schedule does make more sense. It's a possibility that block schedules. I mean, there are things that we could consider transitioning from. It's just not something we are looking at right now. We feel like it's more logical and more time appropriate as we have conversations about what that building looks like in our program design. Switching back to 7 bells, the question was asked, what would the impact on staff be? So instead of 5 preps with a plan, there would be 6 preps with a plan, so they'd each have another teaching assignment. They would have shorter plan bells, and there would likely be some shifts in course offerings, and positive or negative, probably a little bit of both, based on the schedule, and it would shift master schedule planning. So
Master schedule referring to?
master schedule is like the overall planning for, we gotta make sure we have our 7th graders in lunch while our high schoolers are, like, just in terms of, because we share a lot of teachers between our middle school and high school programming, especially in specials. And so, like, the design of that is something that I have not had to do, but Carol and Jen have both had experience doing that, and in Meredith at the elementary level, and it is a challenge. So one we can do for sure. I think, and it was interesting as I was right before here, we had our book study, and one of the things that Natami had talked about is kind of that individualistic versus collectivist. I think the 6 bell day in terms of the collectivist really focuses on the relationship and the community building, which in a shorter bell period sometimes gets lost. So that's some of the answers to the questions that were posed, and kind of my thoughts. So.
Do you know why the initial, I think I've asked this previously, but do you know why the initial switch was made? What was kind of the rationale behind that?
It was really to align more with our RP and PBL work and have that longer time. Because in RP, one of the big pieces is the community building. And so how do we make time for that connection before content? Well, we add a few minutes to each of the class periods. And then in terms of project-based learning, one of the things they talk about, it's not the road, it's not surface level, it's deeper, it takes longer lengths of time. In some respects, 6 bells doesn't even give us the length of time, which is where the block or something else could potentially be a different solution moving forward or a different option.
So one of the things that I know I've heard from community members is that when we switched to the 6 bell, at least initially, there was the conflict between choir and another class that this was in 2019, and it essentially made it so you could not, a whole bunch of students couldn't take choir because it conflicted with other classes, and that's part of the reason why our choir program at least doesn't exist, was one of the things that I've heard, is that there was this scheduling conflict that had occurred. So my question is, with a 7 bell schedule, would more course offerings be able to be offered? Do we lose any AP course offerings or any other electives when we did that switch? And I'm not saying necessarily switch back to it, but I'm saying as we go forward, look at course offerings as we change our schedule eventually in the future, because we're probably not going to stay with the 6 bell as we currently have it. Just making sure that we offer those as many courses as students want to take.
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, I do want to put out there's a possibility that we do stay with the 6 bell too as we have the conversations, or, you know, I don't want to take that totally off the table. When we switched, I do know, the year I believe we switched was the year we lost our choir teacher.
Right, she resigned.
So that was part of the challenge, so that transition. I think the other piece in terms of AP and CCP, I was I'll have that information, that data for you guys in terms of the trends in our AP offerings. They have consistently, until this year, been anywhere from 8 to 11. And that has been pretty standard. Our current AP courses is down this year, more than it has been, but we have more students enrolled in CCP. And so that's kind of the information I'll try to get to you guys. We're waiting on some of the pieces for CCP, but I should have that to you soon. So we can look at the overall, because what we're noticing is we have less kids taking AP, but more kids taking CCP.
Our high school choir numbers have been dropping consistently for a while, and so we have been working with a 7-bell schedule trying to fill that choir schedule, and it usually happened with middle school electives. And what happened was kids who weren't in orchestra or who weren't in band were forced to take choir. So it wasn't kids who necessarily wanted it.
Yeah.
And that created a lot of other challenges. So we found it wasn't working to try and fill the choir schedule as a middle school elective.
Did that happen with other electives too? I mean, we must have lost a few other elective classes when we had the switch, or had those been missed, or?
I can't,
I don't know if we
honestly,
lost
I
any
wasn't.
pottery courses or anything else like that.
Electives have changed
Just small
every year,
things, okay.
depending
Right.
on staff and what they want. Right, some years there's digital art, some years there's pottery, there used to be woodworking, some years there was home ec, then that came back right before COVID as Adulting 101. I mean, it fluctuates, and it is based on what we hear from the students.
Of jewelry making. I think that's one of the things. It does switch year to year, and that's where the master schedule comes in and is so critical, because we have, you know, making it work so our students have as many opportunities and options as they can.
Could we do a survey to see what students might want to have offered in the district?
I know they've done surveys in the past. I just, yeah.
They do in the spring, counselors do, and hear from them. I mean, the other challenge, there's not a jack of all trades teaching license, so there's no person you can hire where it's like you have a bell of woodworking, you have a bell of pottery, you have a bell of whatever it might be. Like, you know, we have to find people with the correct teaching license for the course.
Got it.
The other challenge, like even our content areas have gone through trying to offer electives. Like I know the English department had several years they were offering a variety of elective courses, but like Eric had 5 preps one year. Like that's insane to have 5 different courses, not bells, but entirely different courses you're trying to plan for. So that's the other piece, you know, and part of that was to support our teachers. Like really we would like it where none of our high school teachers have more than 2 preps, because we're so tiny. Every year we have many who have 3 preps. When you're talking 4 preps, like that's just too big of a demand.
That's pretty wild.
Teachers, yeah.
So I wonder also, you say that we've had consistent AP course offerings 8 to 11, but because they only have 6 bells, does that mean that a specific student doesn't get as much opportunity because they can't take biology at the same time as band, or, you know, things like that?
We are
Has
pretty
that been a problem?
Yeah, we've been pretty strategic, the secondary campus, about rotating those offerings, and so students know, like, okay, AP biology is not offered this year, it will be offered next year, so I'm gonna take AP Chem this year with the knowledge I'll take AP biology next year.
Yeah,
And so there's some of that strategy around, and those conversations are had with our students when they're scheduling.
Yeah, and that's not new, that's been going on for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
Longer, like even with the
Yeah.
7 all day.
Yeah,
that's been the
yeah,
conflict.
very, very
The
long.
challenge with the APs is you have many that might have 5 kids in them or 6 kids in them. And so number one, that
Yeah.
means you've got other classes, probably gen ed classes that are sitting with 30 to 34 kids in them. And number two, if you have an AP that 6 kids are taking, you know, that might be the one that conflicts versus one that has 20 kids in it. Because you just have to go with the numbers. But Tony's right, it's happened for more than 10 years. There's always, like, you can't take every AP.
And there has been a pretty big shift away from AP, so
Yes.
I've been working with my oldest is 33, seeing the change in AP, even talking with Matt Bryant about the change in AP. So he's not a fan of it anymore. If you've just been going to the website every year for like, I don't know, 13 years like I did, you saw them going away from what they say they are to a money-making machine. Very disappointed.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, they've even had to rewrite a flip-flop in a 1-year span because the way they put together their goals. So they've gone from something which is a standard where colleges would take them and say, wow, we know they've been doing what they're doing, to being, everybody knows what they're doing. So colleges aren't accepting at the same rate, and for students who, where they're maximizing is really trying to get that college credit, CCP is a much better path. It gets you what you need, and quite honestly, it's not as hard. And it used to be College Credit Plus did not weigh your grade point average the same as AP, but there was a law change in the state of Ohio that required that it have to be. Yeah, so a lot of these things, AP is a thing people realize, they might have done it when they were in school. What it means now for the students, longer term, versus what it might mean for these parents who, it's just not the same thing. And so it really has changed a lot in the last probably 15 years, but not for the better.
Let me clarify my question then,
Yeah,
because I actually, when I was a kid, I hated AP. I thought that was the worst idea ever, and then having to test through. Just offerings in general for different variety of classes. I know one of my very favorite classes in school was a speech and drama English. That was my senior year English class, was speech and drama actually. So like just having those different offerings and variety in general, not necessarily AP. Is that more of a struggle because of 6 versus 7?
No, it's a struggle because we're small, and so that's what we were 7 Bell Bay when the English department offered journalism, African American literature, media and lit. We've had our social studies department go through and offer a variety of things, even our math department has tried. And yeah, it just becomes so many preps because we're small, and so we only have, best case scenario is when our departments have 8. When we had 6th grade up there, are 7 teachers, then you kind of have 1 per grade level, but a lot of times we're at 5 or 6 per department.
I think that's really helpful, just we have people in the community mentioned, and we can reiterate those things to them because we heard from you firsthand, also from Dr. Megson. I think that's helpful in explaining that it is due to district size and then also different desires and course offerings, and that we do everything we can to make sure the students can take the courses they want to take. Also, the decline of the AP courses and all that is good to include. So.
Well, I think there was also one more concern that I've heard is that the idea was to give more class time to be deeper learning, but some of the class plans didn't necessarily change, so now students have more free time at the end of class and aren't actually utilizing that time as well as it could be utilized. And then the classes that are utilizing it well, we all know science says that your focus only lasts for so long, and our classes now with 6 bells are a little bit longer than that. So how are we making sure kids get the breaks they need and they're able to focus still for the amount of time without wasting that time? And I think that's the biggest concern, is that it just added to extra free time and not actual extra learning.
I think that's part of our progression in terms of learning as instructors and how to facilitate that learning. I think a lot of it is, we encourage all of our teachers to start with some sort of community building in a circle. We're not there yet, but it's something we're working towards. And so through the community building, we do energizers with them, like we've done with you guys, train wreck, different things like that, to try to get them engaged and then move into learning. PBL is very much about short lessons and then going and working in small groups and conversation. We don't do the traditional sit and get. We try not to. Are there classes that at the end, there's 15, 20 minutes where kids are working on work? And I can say, yes, that is happening. We're working really hard to move towards a different version of what that instruction looks like. We're in year, I think, 3, and if you count for our real intentional shift to PBL, I think PBL has been a conversation in our district much longer than that. So I think it's just, we're not where we want to be yet, but we're on the journey. And so I think that's what I would say to that piece, yeah. There are classrooms where we're working towards something that would, and there are classrooms that are doing it and doing it amazing work and breaking that up. But our goal is for kids not to be sitting. Adults don't like that.
No.
Yeah, so.
I think the only other things for me to add on that is when we say we're waiting for the new building to start implementing and looking at those changes, I would caution to not do too much change at once. So if there's something that we could start implementing now to head in that right direction so that's not so much change for students, it might benefit them and us and the staff. So looking at different ways to do it earlier versus waiting for the building might be beneficial. I like the idea of block scheduling. I have seen it happen and I see how it works, and it could give you time to have a break in your class with still giving you the project-based learning in-depth time. I'm not saying that that's the way we should go, but I think that we should be open to that as well.
So I had some questions there. So like, talk about when the ed visioning starts, when you have like a completed, I know completed is a funny word here, but so, you know, when ed visioning starts with regards to the funding, when you think you have a plan you're aiming for, and when you might start implementing it. Because I would, you know, presume, you know, so to, you know, Lindsay's point, probably not waiting necessarily until we have a new building before we change. Is that?
So right now, in terms of our conversations about schedules and things like
Right.
that, we are much more focused on what's happening in the 6 bell versus
Right,
switching the schedule.
Right,
So
right.
to me, unless something organically came out of ed visioning,
Right.
where it's like, oh, well, we need the structure of our day to look different, that's not something currently we see as a need. What
Right.
our current need that we've identified is, how do we get the time within that current bell schedule to be used effectively to connect with kids, teach content, have conversations, and build those skills in our kids that will help them moving forward. So right now, we are not looking or having conversations about shifting from a 6 bell day. We're having conversations about what happens during that 6 bell.
So you'd be,
So-
so ed visioning though is tied to having some freedom in building your schools.
Correct.
And so that will happen this spring?
Probably more likely summer.
Okay, so
Spring, summer.
that'd be the summer, okay.
Yeah.
So with those conversations starting in the summer, there's just nothing saying there'll be a change for this coming fall, just because that takes time. So even with that, even, you know, doing some of those things, if we're going to, you know, say something, if the building gives us new opportunities, can we start doing them sooner? That would still be 2024 before that would be anything that could happen.
Correct.
Even if, you know, that we're not planning on it, if something came out of that, an opportunity in 2024,
Right.
yeah, provided, you know, in most, I would think a lot of these opportunities could happen in the existing building, even if it didn't work as well as possible.
And not, this isn't meant to be an excuse, but we are trying to rebound to, I mean, this is our second year of full day instruction. We did absolutely in our test score show it, COVID hit us in a different way in terms of achievement. It also impacted our chronic absenteeism. Like, there are things that happened during that time we're still kind of recovering from. And so for us, we want to focus on what we know right now versus looking for a shift or a change that hasn't been brought to us by staff or necessarily students. I think, are there course offerings maybe, or are there some things like that that could happen? Absolutely. But in terms of the actual structure of the school day, that's just something right now we haven't had conversations about. It's more of the content during and what the instruction looks like.
I'm curious that you haven't heard from parents, because I feel like every time I talk to parents, 6 bells comes up.
Yes, we did.
In some way.
Yeah.
We did
had many
at the-
meetings and, yeah, I think they might be thinking it's New Year's. So that's what you're hearing.
Yeah.
I think I just want to say, I think what you shared is extremely helpful, just talking about the teacher workload with having less students and having to make sure our teachers don't have too many plans. I think that's unfortunate, but hopefully as our enrollment increases, eventually, long-term, there'll be changes. So, and that puts less work on our teachers too.
And it comes up in conversation, and I think the questions are asked and we answer them and things like that, but it hasn't been anything that has come up in a very negative way recently with me, I can say, so.
Okay. Right, ready to move on?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Item 10, financial matters. May I have a motion for 10.1, adoption of the consent calendar?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Alvarado, Oliveria, we take us through the financial.
Okay, the first item, the monthly financial report. In October, in our general fund, we had revenue of $834,417. Fiscal year-to-date revenues in the general fund, $8,525,061. Expenditures in the month of October, $1,527,980 in October. Fiscal year to date, $6,513,751. Our cash balance at the end of October was $15,155,543. Item B, depository investment balances as of October 31st, 2022. U.S. Bank, $291,415. U.S. Bank Construction Fund, $3,676,492. Star Ohio, $21,275,273. Star Ohio Construction Fund number 2, $3,029,985. Star Ohio Construction Fund number 1, $1,573,770. Item C, interest earned on depository investment accounts for October. General fund interest income, $56,833.76. Construction fund, $11,828.97. Item D is the monthly bond project spending and commitment report. So that's the last page in this month's reporting section. And Table 1 shows that so far in our project, which is nearing completion, we've spent $23,238,936. The second portion, Table 2, shows that we have purchase orders or commitments out there, monies yet to spend in the amount of approximately $948,255. Coming close to the end. Item E is a recommendation to approve advances from the general fund to the ESSER 2 fund in the amount of $12,670.53. You may have noticed a lot of transfers to ESSER, and that's because of it being a different type of grant than our other grants. Most of these other grants, when the new year comes along, new money comes along, but in the ESSER grant, we were given all the money at the beginning, and so we have to file a final expenditure report, and it has to be approved by the state. Sometimes that takes time, and we can't start a new grant of funding and get the money for it until the old one's been approved, and so it's just kind of a waiting game and something that we've had to go through. But this should be the last time because we have received some approvals now. Item F is a recommendation to do some advances back. So this is where we've advanced money and we're able to return it now. And you can see approximately $20,000 worth of advances are being returned back to the general fund. Any questions about any of these items 10.1?
Just really great seeing the 3% instead of the 0.03%.
Yeah, and it's it'll be higher next month, definitely. So yes, the interest income this year is going to be really helpful to what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay. We have a roll call vote for item 10.1.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Gast?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Item passes. I have a motion for item 10.2, resolution requesting authorization from the county auditor to submit a modified tax budget.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Alberio, how, this is one of the standard ones, right?
Right, yeah, it's typical, we do this every year at this time. It's a more modern, more useful document, both to the county and for the board to review. And so, I strongly recommend that we do this, all school districts take advantage of this when offered.
So has this started since you've been treasurer, or is this something already in place?
I operated under the old format for a number of years before this came along. This has been in place for quite a while now.
Right.
Yeah. And I like it much better.
Did this save you a lot of time, or just make things more clear?
I think it saves time, and it's, again, more useful if someone wants to try to study and learn what's being presented. It's a better document for understanding how the school operates.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Gast?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes.
Item passes. I have a motion for 10.3, resolution requesting the county auditor to make advance payments of taxes pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 321.34.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, and this is a recommendation to speed up the payment of our tax collection from the county auditor. If we were not to do this, they would hold the money until the very end, give us a final settlement. This way, we get the money sooner, and of course, with interest rates higher,
Yeah.
that's what we want to do.
And this is just as they come in, do they reconcile with us every month, or how often do they send us?
It's depending on, according to the flow, but like in some months I can get 3 payments.
Wow.
So when it's really coming in fast, yeah, they don't let it accumulate to too large of a number, and they'll send it out.
Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Gast?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Item passes. 11, superintendent's recommendations. May I have a motion for 11.1, adoption of the consent calendar.
I'll move.
And I'll second.
All right, so item A, just for a point of clarification, we are rescinding because those were originally co-facilitated supplementals, but now they are being filled by one individual. So they are later in the agenda for approval, but that's why those are being rescinded. Item B is just approval of current supplementals as we were discussing, as well as C and D talk about some approval payment for other activities performed by staff and setting the payment rate. And then the other point, obviously, item G is our sub-approval again. I do want to point out on item H, that is the approval of out-of-state professional development and or events. And so we have 2 we are bringing to the board.
We're not quite in sync.
Oh, there's
2 H's.
Oh,
There you go.
oh, there are.
substitutes is H
Do you want to
as well.
read letter H down, starting with I?
So I would be
For the second
approval of out-of-state?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So for that, the 2 are, we sent several staff members to the training in Eastern Michigan in August. The Lauren Headline and Tammy Dietz, we would like to send to the Train the Trainer model, training up at Eastern Michigan. That is a training Jen and I have been through before when we train the entire staff. We are trying to build some capacity and pass that training lead on to Tammy and Lauren through this opportunity. So that is also in December. And then the second one is the COSSBA conference that we were talking about in Tampa, and that would be approval for Jen and I to travel to Tampa to present. So those are those 2 items. Item I is some change orders, they continue, so things that they're still addressing. Item J is the proposed calendar for next school year. So this was, as mentioned, given to the union. The union voted, this was the majority, So our start date would be August 17th, returning to that. So the summer would be a little bit shorter, but we are out in May, so.
Can I say I was happy to see this change. This is back to our normal schedule.
Yeah.
So I think the whole board is excited about that, and I think parents will be too.
Then the next one, consideration of the policy revision, this is the first read of that, and that would change our cutoff date from, currently it's August 1st, it would change it to September 30th in the policy for entrance requirements. I shared a little bit with the board about the why behind it several years ago. And then I think I passed along an email from a staff member just sharing some maybe doubts or reservations or considerations about keeping where it is.
I think the policy itself is missing from this is supposed to be
We
in
don't
there.
have to have it in.
Okay.
Yeah, but I
We
think,
just
did
put up-
everyone receive it?
I don't think I read it, but it's just changing to the 30th.
That's the only thing that's changed in the policy is the date. Everything else is consistent.
What would be action steps for us as a board and for admin from the time, when does this need to be decided? If it were going to change?
It could be changed next month, or it could also be tabled. If the board decided to table for any reason, this still counts as the first read, so when we put it back on, so we could do the second. In my understanding, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong.
As long as we don't change it.
As long as we don't change it, it could be approved at a later board date. So, and then item L is acceptance of donations, which is really not L, it would be M. But a cash donation for $500, hold on, I can't read this, to Finneytown Local School District Volley for a Cure fundraising from Parker Roof. A cash donation of $2,000 to Finneytown Local School District Middle School Theater Program from Educational Theater Association. Target gift card valued at $200 to Finneytown Local School District Social Work Fund from Julie Ford. And then a clarinet valued at $200 to the Finneytown Local School District Music Program from Susie, I don't want to butcher that last name.
Connaughton, looks like.
Connaughton, is that what, okay, we'll go with that. So, thank you for all those generous gifts and donations.
What's our thank you process for this?
I send out a tax deduction form and a letter thanking them. It's all rolled into one.
Okay. Great.
So that's fine.
I do it at the end of the year. I don't do it throughout the year, but at the end of the year so they have it in time for tax filing. Yes.
If somebody wanted to donate anonymously, that could tell you that, so it wouldn't be read.
I do sometimes have
Yeah.
anonymous donations on
Yeah.
it.
But don't get listed here, or you say anonymous.
I'll put down anonymous from an anonymous donor.
I thought I was anonymous. I did not say that. My name was on one once.
Yeah, I have to be told.
Yeah, that was, caught me off guard when somebody thanked me.
Item D.
My mistake.
Approval for payment, it just lists the names, is there a range that we're approving, like?
So, those individuals performed,
Actually, item C, right above D,
Yeah.
they would take some of these positions. And they
Oh.
don't always take the same position, but if they were
Okay.
working any of these,
Got
that's.
it.
So these are just names to go with, okay,
Yes.
gotcha, that makes sense.
So, it is almost 9. I think we could might have a significant discussion on the changing of the policy on admittance. So I would rather,
Yeah, I think we should not discuss
As long as it's the
that.
first reading, we could discuss it maybe next month.
yeah.
Table that.
Can I ask for one piece of information for next month, if we're gonna have that discussion? What's our current preschool enrollment cutoff? If we know?
it would change the date for that as well.
Okay.
The dates for first grade, kindergarten, and preschool would be amended in the policy to the September 30th.
Any other questions? Madam Mayor, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gast,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. McMullen,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Reed. Yes.
Item 11.1 passes. Do we have action steps?
I will be attending the King of the Hill Wrestling Tournament on the 1st, if anyone, we were invited months ago, so if, kind of a cool thing. I've never seen a live wrestling show other if like Hulk Hogan wasn't in it, but looking forward to that, so.
I've never seen any, but I will be there.
Plan to schedule a meeting with Mr. Anderson for a tour of the rest of the district's facilities, the lesser seen and soon to be demolished potentially be demolished parts of our facilities. Also, Lori, would it be possible for the list of supplementals, is that something that would make sense to receive before our next board meeting? Or would that be something that start next July?
I have I can share that tomorrow, the list of supplementals that are
Great.
listed in the contract
Okay.
and by category.
Is there a
I
way
have
to
that. And then
delineate as they appear per semester or somehow?
I haven't
timeline
worked that
works?
out yet, but we can organize that and get that to you guys before the next board meeting.
Great.
So, which I'll give you my list and we can add, but, so I have information on McKinney-Vento that I will send to all of the board, which is just information about how we address homelessness in Finneytown in accordance with the law and with ODE. I will, at the next board meeting, be providing update on source survey. Prior to that, tomorrow I will send out a robocall and a text reminder about that with the deadline. I will schedule a meeting with our secondary campus admin team around choir and the possibilities of what that could look like second semester in terms of likely an after school, but some sort of step in the right direction. I will just again invite to Correction Cafe next Monday. I will work also with Carol around the FAFSA form and how we can maybe advertise that differently. I will ask Brittany and Kathy if they are available in December or January to come talk to us about ACES. And then that's what I have on my list. And then I don't know where we want to start in terms of the maternity, paternity. I don't know if that's just an invitation for the three of us to get together. I think Dave should be there in terms of, obviously that's a piece. So the four of us can maybe sit down and then bring attorneys into it when needed.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll send.
I'll jot something down and
Okay.
take a look, but.
Can I also ask, if we're gonna have students coming, I would like to give them time to prepare if they wanna talk on anything that we are kind of getting ready to discuss, or if we're gonna have questions maybe. Can we get a rough draft of the agenda, like the topics? That, that way they can see it ahead of time and think of their own thoughts and what they wanna contribute.
So I'm meeting with them typically the week before to kind of talk about big picture things. So if we can have that kind of solidified that early, I think one of the things, particularly, we didn't have a working session this last time, so I feel like the agenda, the space between made it a little bit more challenging this time to get the agenda together. But yeah, we can work.
I even saw them get more comfortable as they went
Yeah,
on, so I
yeah.
think it'll continue to.
Yeah, I agree.
I also don't want to overwhelm with a lot of questions
Right.
too.
Really quickly, I don't know the effort that took going into this. I like this vibe, like in this area. I like it a lot better than the media center, but I don't know how difficult it was to pull it off, having it here, but.
I think the back and forth will offer a little bit of a challenge, so I think just determining where we want it and making sure we have the things easily accessible to move and create the space is important, so.
So it doesn't necessarily matter to the administration and the principals that are here.
I'm open
It's
to
okay
either
if here
space.
versus there, as long as we're
I think
consistent.
the chairs here are more comfortable.
I was thinking the chairs there are more comfortable anyway. So.
Bring a stadium cushion.
Would we like to have our next
Fair.
meeting here, or do we want to amend the announcement to have it at the media center?
Well, this one, our announcement says the media center right now, so
Yeah,
it
can we
would
change
be
that?
amended to here.
And it's also December 12th, not the 19th.
And, yeah,
The
that's
calendar says it's on the 12th.
Yeah, that's the wrong date here.
So which is it?
Oh.
Because I presumed
I'd love to
break
know
was
the
early.
truth.
I have it on the 19th in mine.
So that,
The website says the 12th.
Okay.
Oh, I have it on the 19th on my calendar.
yeah.
I probably do too,
Okay.
because I'm using your
Do you have the
calendar.
19th?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the website does say the 12th, so it should be the 19th. I presumed like
Oh,
break
it's the
was
19th.
crazy early or something,
It's
that's
the
why.
19th.
Yeah, our break, we don't start on break
Yeah.
till the 22nd.
Right, so,
19th.
okay.
Okay, so is it the 19th?
It should be.
I would
That's
think
the
we
That's
could
our
just
date. The
update
third Monday's the
calendar.
19th.
Yeah,
Okay.
we just need to update the website.
Yeah.
Update the
Okay,
website.
I'll ask
Yeah.
them to do.
Yeah,
Or
because
grant.
the only time we ever move it to the second is if the third ends up being beginning of break.
Okay,
Okay,
so we're having it here? Is that what I hear, or?
yes.
I'm
I
okay
would
with
like
here,
to,
yeah.
yeah.
MB, does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're ready for announcements. See if I can keep it straight. Which parts do I change now? Okay, the next regular meeting of the Paytown Board of Education will take place on Monday, December 19th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. at Paytown Elementary. The address is all wrong.
8850.
Open forum will start at 6 p.m. And for those who don't know, open forum, we're here early just to have conversations with people, whatever's interesting to them. Okay, so we are going to now go into executive session. That's you know, a few items by the Ohio Sunshine Laws we can discuss not in public. There's a whole list of them. When we come back, we will adjourn. There'll be no business after the executive session. So I do need a motion for 14 to go into executive session to consider the disposition of property. Since the closure at this time would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage to persons whose personal, private interest is adverse to the general public interest.
So moved.
Second.
And do we have a voice vote to go into executive session?
I think it's a roll call.
Roll call.
Just a second. I thought this was supposed to include 2 executive session items.
No, we
One.
went down to 1.
Okay, so-
Yep, we are 1.
Okay, very good. Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. McMullen,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Gast.
Yes. We are in executive session.